Welcome everybody to this webinar of the European Resuscitation Council at the occasion of today, World Restart the Heart Day. My name is Koen Monsieurs. I am the chair of the European Resuscitation Council. I am an emergency physician working in Antwerp in Belgium, and I will be moderating and presenting this webinar together with Johannes, who is my co-host. Johannes, could you please introduce yourself?
Thank you, Koen. My name is Johannes Wittig. I'm a medical doctor, PhD student from Denmark, and I'm also the chair of the Young European Resuscitation Council, and it's a great pleasure to co-host this session tonight with you.
It's a pleasure to have you with us, Johannes. Thank you. The purpose of this webinar is, of course, to increase awareness for cardiac arrest in Europe and beyond. And today we will be putting strong emphasis on survivors and survivor communities, not just today, Johannes, but throughout the near future, I would say.
Fantastic.
Johannes, there are some house rules maybe that we like to communicate first before we kick off. Could you please proceed with those?
Pleasure. Of course, there are some technicalities to the webinar, and that all participants get the best out of it. Please make use of the Q&A function during the webinar, which you can find on your screen, and we will get back to your questions after each part and address them. And also for information, the webinar is recorded, so it will be available online probably already tomorrow. So that you can already share it with others who cannot be with us tonight. And I would say, Koen, I believe we can already hand over maybe for the first session?
Absolutely, we can indeed. So the first part of this webinar is being moderated by Federico and Sebastian. So Federico and Sebastian, over to you guys.
Hello to everybody, also from my side. I'm Federico Semeraro. I'm a consultant in anesthesia intensive care from Bologna, Italy. I am the chair-elect of ERC. I'm very happy to be with you this evening, and I also give the voice to Sebastian, my co-moderator.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sebastian Schnaubert. I'm an intensive care and emergency physician from Austria, Vienna. And I think it's vital to not only, well, achieve survivalship, but also talk to survivors and hear their stories, because it motivates us to, well, become even better in resuscitation. And it's an honor to co-moderate this today.
So thank you, Sebastian. We will start with the first speaker, Bernard from Belgium. It's a real pleasure to give the voice to Bernard. In the next 10 minutes, he will tell about his story. So Bernard, welcome. Very pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I've been asked to tell my survivor story and hopefully also some lessons that might not surprise you maybe, but will maybe confirm some things. So on Friday, January the 28th, 2022, so 2 years ago, plus minus, at the end of the second or third warm-up exercise at my personal trainer's fitness, during the week at 11 in the morning, I noticed that my heart rate, instead of dropping from 120 beats to 80, 90 beats during the resting time, during 2 exercises, started to rise. I lay down and I sensed immediately that something was not normal. I experienced some shortness of breath combined with pain in my breast and left arm. And so within 2 minutes, I asked my personal trainer to call 112, which is the number of the emergency services in Belgium. The moment the ambulance arrived, I think it was around 14 minutes after the call, which was very quick to bridge 9 kilometers, but it was in the middle of the day, so no rush hour. I let go and I quickly lost consciousness. So the first thing I remember after that is that they asked my name while ambulance was driving to the hospital. So I regained consciousness then. Second thing I remember is at the operating table, the cardiac surgeon with a big smile on his face told me I just survived the Widowmaker. So he was very happy about that. And finally, after a couple of days, after this small operation, basically they just insert a stent in your arm. And then I could read in the discharge letter from the hospital to my family physician that I had suffered a double cardiac arrest in the ambulance. Apparently the ambulance stood also still during 10 minutes. Had what they call a 2 times a ventricular fibrillation, which he counted with external defibrillation and cortisone injection. And the cause was apparently a blood clot that blocked the blood supply of my left anterior descending artery. End of quote. So when I look back on the period after the surgery, the rehabilitation period, a couple of things stand out. First thing was work, 2, cardiac rehabilitation, 3, emotions, family, friends, 4, the need for more balanced self-care, and 5, my unconscious attempt, at least at first, at a new start. You might call it rebirth in a bombastic way, combined with my search for purpose, which is also quite usual, I think, for some people. First, regarding work, my learning here is that I try to be, I'm a manager, I have 20 employees in my company, and so a sickness leave from a doctor is not really a foolproof way of stopping to work. So I try to be very open with my colleagues, friends, also my co-manager and family about what happened to me. And basically that I tried to obtain an implicit but explicit buy-in that would ensure at least 6 months of focus on my rehabilitation. That was a little bit my period. I had also discussed it with my cardiologist. That was a minimum period, and I got that period. It's quite important that I think you get this buy-in, especially when you are a self-employed person, because sickness leave in itself is not a guarantee that clients or employees don't call you. Second, regarding the rehabilitation exercise period, the first time they took, I think the exercise started 6 weeks after my surgery. The first time they took my VO2 max, it was significantly below the median of my age group, 57 years at the time, significantly below the median. They explained me quite well how important VO2 max is as an indicator of future capabilities. And so I worked diligently. 3 times a week I went to the cardiac rehabilitation center in Imelda, in Bonheiden, a very good one. I noticed there were 250 USB sticks that were used at that moment, so you can imagine how many people have the same thing. And I also bicycled to the hospital and back. It was around 20 kilometers. And I went for brisk walks. And at the end of August, after 6 months, to my big satisfaction, my VO2 max was again pushed upwards to the 25 highest percentile in my age group, which was for me an objective. So I was very happy about it. My learning is it's important that cardio patients are really aware of the importance of this VO2 max indicator as an indicator that can show how you can progress and how you're making progress. Thirdly, regarding emotions, family, friends. The main pitfall or learning that I want to share is that after such a life-threatening incident, some people like me, for example, tend to be in a survivor mode and tend to become quite selfish and self-centered. In my case, I noticed it when at a dinner, one of the first social dinners we had with friends, I proudly stated that dying of a heart attack is in itself not a bad death. But I suddenly noticed that my wife started to cry next to me, and but only then, I started to understand that I just made a very selfish and self-centered statement. It also, not that evening, but later on, when I thought about it, it made me also realize that a positive rehabilitation process is something that only can be successful in the long run when the whole family, the social fabric is involved and supports you. So you have to also to be grateful as a patient for the people that support you. Not only the professionals, but also the social fabric. And that can help to be a little bit less self-centered in that period. Moreover, it became clear to me that life goes on. Whether you die, whether you survive, the world doesn't stop turning. So I had to give this near-death experience a motivating and positive place in my life instead of allowing this to become a traumatic experience. And I saw several levels, the emotional level, but also regarding my self-care efforts in the long run, and also about a search for a new purpose that could fit this new part of my life. Emotionally, for me, it was quite simple. I tried to list all the reasons that should make me grateful and thankful to be among the lucky ones. A survivor of a widowmaker accident, and this mainly to the professionalism and the alertness of the whole chain of medical emergency professionals, like a lot of you tonight. So I'm eternally grateful. Regarding increased self-care efforts, I made a conscious effort to implement healthy habits, because it's the long run that counts, not the short run, regarding sleep, nutrition, exercise, stress management, and also social connection. And finally, regarding my search of purpose, there were two highlights. First, I organized in November 2023 a residential weekend retreat, 3 days for 12 couples, where we discussed 3 books that I sent them. 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Bergman. It's about the book is about how to make these 4,000 weeks count. Die with Zero from Bill Perkins. That's a book about how to live a rich life instead of dying rich. And then also Outlive by Peter Attia, which is about how to increase your health span by focusing on the 6 to 8 pillars of prevention, depending you're following the American or the European system. There were also 6 doctors present at that retreat by accident, because I invited friends. And at the end of the weekend, where there were also a lot of testimonials, a lot of openness, a lot of sharing of experiences, these doctors really said they were happy about their participation in this initiative. And the proof of the pudding is the fact that I'm now quite happy to and excited to be in the final phase of launching a brand new lifestyle medicine center called Better Longer Living in Mechelen during Q1 of 2025. And this in close partnership with one cardiosurgeon, not the one who operated me, but another one gynecologist, one sleep specialist, one pneumologist, sleep specialist, one clinical psychologist, and 2 general practitioners. And so we are trying to, me as an entrepreneur, complementary part to the doctors who are more doctors. And to conclude this, no matter how short life is, for me, the lesson is let's try to make it as meaningful as possible for ourselves, for our family, for our friends, and if possible, for our community. And I suppose this is also the reason why you are attending this important event tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this inspiring story and these very strong words at the end. I think these are very, well, meaningful to a lot of people. We will now move on to another survivor who is with us tonight. That is Dave Cleland from the UK. And I'll just hand the mic over to you, Dave.
Dave, you're still muted.
I cannot hear Dave.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, apologies for that. Yep, so my name is Dave Cleland. I'm from the UK, and I'm going to tell you my story. So that's a picture of me on the left, and the picture of my wife, who was also my CPR provider. So there's going to be some resonance with what you've just heard, and some things which are different. So my events go back to February 21, which was the second COVID lockdown in the UK. So that has some implications. Like the previous story from Bernard, I also had a heart attack, which was a blockage to the Widowmaker or the LAD. So that was why I was exercising. So I was very fit. I was exercising on a bike, suffered indigestion, didn't go away, ended up being a heart attack, taken not to my nearest hospital, but to 160 miles away. I was in there for two days. They put a stent in straight away on arrival. I came home after 2 days, and then 7 days after my heart attack, I had a sudden cardiac arrest at home. I was in a coma, induced coma, for about 30 hours. I came out of the coma on the Sunday, and 5 days later, I got an SICD implant. So that's a internal defibrillator, and that's because they didn't know the cause of my cardiac arrest. So I'm idiopathic. And the following day, I returned home. So over the period of 2 weeks, all on Saturdays, sort of fairly major events happened to me. In terms of the classic chain of survival, this is what most people will recognize, and mine's a fairly good, if not great, survival story. So my wife heard me fall. Fortunately, I was upstairs, she was in the house, she heard me fall, She responded within a minute, and she knew that I was not breathing. She started CPR within a couple of minutes, and as it happens, she'd had a refresher the night before. So she had done CPR training. She was a teacher, but literally in the evening, the Friday evening, she was having a refresher training on a dummy, and then the following afternoon doing it on another dummy. The first ambulance arrived 2 shocks later, and after about 12 minutes, I'd achieved ROSC. So again, all these I now understand to be pretty good figures. We then had a whole host of medics, so 2 ambulances, another medic car, a volunteer clinician from a charity called SARS, and he called the air ambulance. So I ended up being intubated and transferred back to the Royal Papworth Hospital, which is 60 odd miles away, where I was placed in the coma, which I've told you about before. So most people would recognize that as a really good chain of survival. Everything clicked in really well. My wife did good CPR, no broken ribs. And for most clinicians, that's where the story ends. You know, they've got you to hospital. If you walk out of hospital in the UK and you stay alive for 30 days, you count as a positive in the stats. You're a survivor. So the rest of my presentation is about what does survival mean. So I always say for survivors, we don't consider getting into hospital survival. We don't consider sort of 30 days survival, but our survival starts when we leave hospital and we leave the security of that great big operation. And often, you've been in a coma and you're hit with information after information. So I've got discharge notes about medicines. I've got information about my ICD. I've got countless other things I've got to tell the driving agency that I'm not allowed to drive because I've got an implant, and you're several days, just a few days out of coma, and you just can't absorb all of this information. So your need goes up, and you also start asking the questions, what happened? Why did it happen? Will it happen again? Can I get back to work? When can I go back to work? Can I exercise? Your head is just full of unknown questions, and you're fatigued. And for me, things improved over the next 3 months. I gained some understanding. So we were fortunate that we had the air ambulance, and they have an aftercare team, and they arranged for a video call with the helicopter crew. And from that, I arranged a video call with the land ambulance crew. I tried to push myself back into doing exercise, and it took me best part of 2 months before I could walk a mile, 1.6 kilometers. 4 weeks later, I could walk 3 miles. But during that period, I also ended up back in A&E because I'd got a feeling of indigestion in my chest one day, and that's the only symptom I had for my heart attack. So I ended up spending a couple of days in A&E, only to be sort of told, well, that was indigestion, you can go home. But this is a sort of paranoia that you live with once you've had a cardiac arrest. So up until 6 months, things again improved. You start to adapt to the lifestyle. I got to understand what living with an ICD means, because I've got to be aware of RF signals and satellite dishes, remote control cars, induction hobs, countless things that you've got to be aware of. I was fortunate that I'd had a heart attack, because the heart attack enabled me to get cardiac rehab. If I hadn't have had a heart attack, gone straight to cardiac arrest, I wouldn't have got any cardiac rehab where I am. So not often you say you're thankful you had a heart attack. I went back to work between the 3rd and 4th month, and that took me about 6 weeks. I thought I'd do it in 4 weeks. But after 6 months, I managed to do a 130-kilometer cycle ride. Not as fast as I would have done it before, but nonetheless, quite a major milestone for me. And things have generally improved. I got my driving license back after 7 months. You still have raised cardiac awareness. I was fortunate to get COVID on the anniversary of my cardiac arrest. So I'll never forget the first time I got COVID. A month later, I was back in A&E because I was pushing myself to cycle or practice for another cycle that I'd got planned, and my heart felt bruised. And again, you're very aware of it. So I had another visit to A&E, turned out to be okay. First time we went through an airport, I'm not supposed to go through scanners. So you get heightened anxiety about what does it mean to get, will the security staff understand? Often they don't. We had our first trip outside of Europe this year. And again, you think, I'm okay when I'm sitting in Europe. I understand Europe's got a good medical system. I'm not quite so sure when I go elsewhere. So there's these various points where this heightened awareness just creeps into a bit more uncertainty. So, life is never going to be straight back to normal. But there's another person who's involved in this. My wife gave me CPR. She saw my face blue. She saw me not breathing. And she always says no one prepared her as to what to expect. We were in COVID. She didn't get to see the doctors unless it was on a WhatsApp call when they just happened to be walking into the room when I was speaking. She got no information. And she describes the first period as 24/7 total responsibility. So she went back to work after a couple of weeks, but she's having to try and hold down a job. She's having to do all the shopping, the duties around the house, watching a constant watch on me, waking up every night during the night to check I'm still breathing. The only rescue she got was from the aftercare team from EAAA, and they actually phoned up after a week to see how she was. That's the only medical people that have ever gone to her to say, how are you coping? Do you need any help? And for her, that lasted longer than it did for me. So, for months she would not sleep. And even now, if she wakes up, she listens to see if I'm still breathing. Before, she used to wake up to check that I was breathing. She became the only driver for 7 months, and having to drive my big car, which she absolutely hated, with me as a passenger telling her how to drive my big car. She had ongoing fatigue and constant watchfulness. Even now, she looks for signs that I might be hiding something. But in particular, after 6 months, we detected one of her trigger points. So there was a fly in the kitchen. I got some newspaper. I squatted the fly. Used to do this all the time. She wasn't prepared. That was a sudden loud noise. That was me falling flat on my face again. So now, whenever we have a loud noise and we're not in the room, you'll hear her saying, "It's okay, I'm fine." Otherwise, it's running around the house to check you're still okay. And again, as for me, things have improved for her, but she's had the same trigger point. So there's a couple of times I've told her when she comes down to breakfast, once you've had your breakfast, will you just take me to A&E? I'm not, I just want something checked out. So she's got this constant vibe. Am I being clear with her, or am I hiding something else? So she's sort of always on edge. And she's even worse about anxieties about the security stuff and they're going abroad or the new environments. And when we're on holiday, we joke about this would be a good place for a helicopter to land, or where's the nearest A&E department. We joke about it, which is good, but it also means that we're always consciously thinking about where's our call for safety if we needed it. So the chain of survival now, you'll start to see there's a recovery phase. So I think this is where ERC and the rest of the world needs to start spending more effort on how do we improve the recovery for people. And that's when they leave hospital. So in the UK, we've got a fantastic peer-to-peer group, Sudden Cardiac Arrest UK, offers practical information, offers guidance, offers just a safe place to speak about your concerns, and you'll get honest feedback, and people have been there, they understand what you've been through. I'm proud to say I'm now a moderator on that group. We have meetups, so we have annual conference coming up next year, and we're arranging local meetups. And there's nothing like meeting other people that have been through it, both as a survivor, but as a co-survivor as well. So that's one of the biggest things I think, is meeting other people, knowing you're not alone. I'm also the co-chair on something called CARES, which is with the University of Warwick Medical School. And here we're trying to trial a recovery pathway for both survivors and co-survivors, getting people in the first 3 months out of hospital. And we hope to start trialing that in the new year, both to see whether the pathway is fit for purpose, but also whether it can be scaled up, can it be practically run? So that's some of the things that we're trying to do, or I'm trying to help in. So I started this by saying it was my survival story, but it's really our survival story. So I'm a survivor, my wife is a survivor, and there are many other people like us. People often say you should be grateful that you got through a cardiac arrest. Why complain? But for us, surviving is not enough. I don't want to spend the rest of my life as a survivor. Our recovery is ongoing. It eases, but there's always that background level of anxiety. But most importantly, survivors want to live the rest of their lives. We don't want to survive the rest of our lives. We want to get on and live them. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you for the opportunity. That's it from me.
Thank you, Dave. Very nice story. Nicely done to compare the line of you in comparison to the line of your caregiver. So as Bernard said, it's not only a problem of the patient in cardiac arrest, but also the problem related to caregivers and your wife. So nicely done. Thank you so much. We have not question at the moment, so I'll give you the hand over to Pierluigi, who also heard his story from Italy. Pierluigi, please. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here to tell my story. I'm very excited to have heard the other stories of survival. In the afternoon, I attended the conference organized by the Italian Resuscitation Council, and it is always a great honor for me to witness the functioning of the rescue chain. My second life began in August 22, 2018, while I was on vacation with my family in a small town in Calabria in the southern Italy, named San Lucido. It was evening, and I was at home with my 4 brothers and all the family, my wife, my 2 my son and my daughter, when suddenly I was struck by a cardiac arrest. My brothers immediately realized the situation and alerted the emergency service, which, however, arrived only after 40 minutes. In these 40 minutes, my brothers performed the cardiac massage for about 30 minutes, while my cousin ran to get the defibrillator that was in the town square. The defibrillator had been requested by the ERC section of San Lucido a few years earlier. After three defibrillator shocks, I returned to life. Fortunately, without any physical consequence, only a lot of pain in my ribs. I woke up and my first appeals were already from the bedroom where the cardiac arrest had occurred. I still remember the nurses give me the oxygen. Since then, I have celebrated my second birthday on August 22nd, and for me, October 16 is like New Year's Eve. I was rushed to the hospital in Cosenza and underwent a coronary tear. After spending a week in intensive care following the implantation of a stent, I left and began the medical journey. I must admit that at the time I had a psychological hype for having survived. But I realized that my family members were telling me what had happened and that the real trauma had been experienced by them and not by me, who just had to get back into shape, fortunately with the help of my cardiologist. I'm the testimony that if the rescue chain works, you can survive without consequence, and that in fact everyone can save a life. Now I can run. I restart to walk in the open air in October 2018, and I began to run in May 2020. And now I run twice a year an half marathon. My messages are about the training of people able to perform cardiac massage and the mental health of survivors and their families. And don't leave families alone. Don't leave survivors alone after being discharged from the hospital, because the families live the real trauma. The survivors, in most cases, are in a coma or unconsciousness. after the earth stroke, my life began as before. I'm very lucky. I'm very happy to be testimony that everyone can save a life, because everyone can be a person able to perform a cardiac massage also without a real training. Make something is better than don't make nothing. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Pierluigi. Again, another nice story, and we learned that definitely we need to take care of family around the patient, around the survivors, because they probably struggle a lot during all the period of cardiac arrest recovery. So thank you very much for your story. Please stay with us. I'll give you the handover to Kun to introduce the next session. And at the end of this session, we talk again about survivors. So stay with us, please. Kun.
Thank you so much, Federico, and also the three survivors. Thank you very much for your testimonials. As Federico said, we will come back with some of the key messages from the survivor stories. But before, I would like to invite Professor Bernd Böttiger, who is also the treasurer of the European Resuscitation Council, to present to us a World Restart the Heart, because it is today World Restart the Heart Day. Bernd, over to you, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Kun, and hello to everyone here. After having heard these very touching stories, I would like to start my presentation. Normally, I'm doing it together with Professor Andrew Lockie from the UK, but Andrew is unfortunately not with us because he is engaged in another event tonight. I'm Bernd Böttiger. I'm an anesthesiologist from Cologne in Germany. And I would like to draw your attention to World Restart the Heart and to what we did over the last years with regard to this. So it's not very fast. So what is most important? We already have heard it from Pierluigi just 5 minutes ago. Most important is to start cardiac compressions so that the blood can flow again to the brain. Because the brain, only weighing 1 or 2 kilograms, consuming 20% of all the oxygen of the body, there is no oxygen anymore after a few seconds or a few minutes in the brain. But in the rest of the body, you have enough oxygen. So in adults, it is enough to pump blood to the brain. The heart is not functioning anymore, but you can support the circulation by putting your hands on the thorax and pump the blood, and so take over the function normally the heart has. So this is maybe one of the most important slides of my presentation, and we have already heard about that. So if there is a collapse, the emergency medical service in my country arrive after 9 minutes in mean. The problem, however, is the brain can survive for 3 to 5 minutes only. So there is a need that people who are around are doing something in the time window for lay resuscitation. We have 3 times more survivors if lay people start with cardiac compressions and resuscitation before the emergency medical service arrives. Again, as very nicely introduced by our 3 survivors guests that we have heard right now. You have already seen the chain of survival by Dave, and I have put on my screen now another chain of survival, which is based on real data. And here you can see that the first 2 links, early recognition and call for help, and early CPR, which we have heard was successful in all 3 survivors that we have met right now, is much, much, much more important than anything we can do in the hospital. So this is the message we want to spread all over the world. We need to increase the rates of lay resuscitation. The message is, if you wait for the ambulance, the brain will already be dead. We started during the ERC, European Resuscitation Council Congress in Cologne 2009 with training school children, and we approached a few years later in 2012 the European Parliament because we wanted to attract attention for the problem of cardiac arrest through the European Parliament. And we were able in Strasbourg to get signatures from 400 members of the European Parliament for a European Cardiac Arrest Awareness Week or Day. And this was the start of the European Restart a Heart Day, which was first performed in 2013 and already had the motto "Kids Save Lives," because even children know what to do after very brief explanation, and children can do check, call, and compressions and bridge the time until the emergency medical service arrive. And then in 2017, a few years later, the European Resuscitation Council, we approached the International Liaison Committee on Resuscitation, and we said, we have such a very positive experience with our European Restart a Heart Day in Europe. So please let us expand this to the whole world. And that was the day when the World Restart a Heart Initiative was born. This is the logo of the World Restart a Heart Day. And we approached many different organizations worldwide, and all 7 International Liaison Committee on Resuscitation Councils all over the world. So we are really covering all the world with Red Cross, with intensive care, with emergency medicine, and with the anesthesiologists. All are with us at World Restart a Heart since then. And what are the principles? World Restart a Heart Day is always on and around today, always on and around October 16. And World Restart a Heart activity must not be limited to school children, because everyone in the world can do CPR. The only thing you need is 2 hands. Our vision is saving more lives globally through lay resuscitation. So please participate. And this was the first World Restart a Heart poster in 2018. We had posters in more than 40 different languages. This is Singali from Sri Lanka. And the motto during these days was check for signs of life, call the EMS, and compress, like Pierluigi's family did, and bridging the time of 20 or 30 minutes very successfully. Again, please remember the new chain of survival, early recognition, and early CPR with cardiac compressions is most important, much more important than anything we can do in the emergency medical service or in the hospital. And this was supported by World Federation of Societies of Anesthesiologists, by the International Federation of the Red Cross. And by the way, the International Red Cross sent it a toolkit in 192 out of 194 countries all over the world. So we are really present with this initiative now in all but 2 countries worldwide. You all know where this is. And by the way, we have recognized that always the sun is shining, at least if we are doing some events with children, which is probably not just, or maybe someone in the air, in the heaven is helping and supporting us. This is in Australia, this is America, this is India, this is also India, I would say, this is Saudi Arabia, this is in Cologne, the Duomo in Cologne, it's always a lot of fun doing activities on October 16 and around. And this is the map of the World Restart a Heart. We started in 2018. We already have reached more than 600,000 patients. And in 2019, we reached more than 5 million lay people to do CPR. There was a little bit of shutdown over the COVID years, but now we are again increasing with all our activities. And we have just summarized what we have achieved over the last 5 or 6 years, 2018 through 2023. We have trained worldwide together with many, many, many enthusiastic colleagues and people. We have trained more than 12.6 million lay persons, and we have reached via social media, television, radio, newspaper in this time period nearly 600 million people worldwide. Think about this is close to 10% of all the inhabitants of the earth right now. This is World Restart the Heart, so we are really very proud. And what is going on today, World Restart the Heart 2024, you can see in Canada, in the US, in South America, in Europe, in the Arab countries, in India and Sri Lanka, in Southern Africa, in Asia, and in Australia and New Zealand. All around the world, there are activities today and the days before and the days after. And that is my message to you, coming from Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, where we have trained small children from favelas in how to do cardiac compression. So check call compress is the way to go. And the message is thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Bernd. Thank you for a very clear message at the occasion of World Restart the Heart Day. Thank you so much. We will now continue with the last part, which is the survivor communities and the survivors. Before we talk about survivor communities, I'd like to ask my co-chair, Johannes, to highlight some of the key messages that he took away from the survivors, and maybe there are also a few questions that we could ask the survivors, Johannes.
Yes, thank you, Koen, and thank you all for your sharing your stories, and also thank you to Professor Bernd Böttiger for sharing the success of World Restart the Heart and this impactful initiative. I think my major takeaway from the survivor stories is that there are several common pathways that are sometimes that occur there, and I think one very impactful theme I've heard was the impact on the family, the co-survivors, and also I think the point that it may be neglected at some times or not be as present, and that this may have to change, and that it's really important that we focus also on families and the co-survivors in this. And something that I picked up on and that I would actually like to ask also a question about is the survivors or the survivor groups that we heard about, this level of peer support. I wonder if one of you would like to suggest how maybe we can increase this important source of support. So the peer level support that you've experienced or initiated yourselves, how can this be supported? How can this be strengthened? Please feel free to just chip in. I think, Dave, I can see you unmuted.
I think it comes at different levels. So Sudden Cardiac Arrest UK will be celebrating 10 years next year. So I joined it 3 years ago. one of the things it's been trying to do is get into every cardiac hospital in the UK to make sure that their staff are aware of it and signpost people towards it. And that's very hit and miss. So some people don't find it for years. Some people now find it when they're recovering in ICU. So we do get our latest people saying, I've heard about this, can I join? And it works really well. I know either a Sweden or Finnish group have approached SCA UK to see how we operate. It is a very safe space. Taking it to another level, I think, is having physical meetups. So fortunately, where I am, the physio lead had heard of the group, so she signposted me within a week of me getting home. But she's now gone above and beyond, and she arranged a monthly meetup for people that went through her physio, and not just cardiac arrest, but any cardiac problems. So we meet once a month for a walk and a coffee, and again, just meeting people face to face and sharing stories takes things to another level. And that's what we're now trying to do in SCA UK. There's now regional hubs being set up. So we've split the UK into, I can't remember the number, at least 16 different regions. And there's coordinators in those regions now arranging face-to-face meetups. And I say it does, knowing you're not alone and you've got other people who understand, takes it to a completely different level. So I think you need it at all levels, but there's nothing like meeting people as well as having a general online community. I don't know if that answers the question, but that's sort of how it works.
Thank you very much. Thanks for sharing this, and because I felt that the peer support you mentioned was quite impactful and important, and taking that to the next level, as you say, is relevant. So thank you again, and I would.
So just one. I mean, it's important actually on our cardiac, cardiac arrest UK. We do not allow clinicians in who have an interest. So unless you've had a cardiac arrest or you're a survivor or family, then you can't join just to see what goes on and to measure how it's going. It's got to be a safe place for people to be able to express their concerns. So that's just as a final comment.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it. And I would just now hand over to Koen again, and because I know you also have key takeaways and also questions you want to point to.
Yes, I do, but I also note some other questions, and I see that also. Let's start with Federico. There is a question, Federico, that you would like to channel into the discussion. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you to Dave, to Pierluigi and Bernard about the story. For Bernard and Pierluigi, one take-home message for healthcare professional for the next generation from your side. One take-home message, one suggestion for us and for the next generation. Bernard first and Pierluigi after, please.
I think we are entering a new phase. The current system is reaching its limits. You see that if you look at the statistics, cardiac death by cardio accident is still the #1 death for women in Belgium, and is the number two reason for men death reason in Belgium. So and two, the number of chronic diseases are at a certain point at a level. So we have incredible good curative care, but I think that the medicine, and this is also an example, this is incredibly important work about resuscitation and about survivors, but I think medicine is incredible, is full of talented people, but they all work in silos. And I think there should be more also collaboration with prevention, maybe with a better detection, for example, of atherosclerosis. One of my things I really want in my lifestyle medicine clinic is a much better scanning of atherosclerosis. I think it's a silent killer, and I think the classical effort test at the cardiologist doesn't measure enough that kind of growing risk. You can be 35 in perfect health, and maybe we are all three an example of that, and still be diagnosed with arteriosclerosis after the fact, not before the fact. So that would be my plea, is to try to collaborate between medical silos and also be linked to prevention, because I think we should start when people are 20, 25 and have unhealthy habits, and then they have this, like me, have this incident 20, 30 years later. But I think, so that's a little bit my plea.
Thank you, Bernard. Pierluigi, from your side?
Only one. I would have more dissemination through famous people on training to increase in a widespread way the possibility of making the rescue chain work. I would like to have famous people speaking about the rescue chain, because it's important that all the people knows that it's important to make the intervent when the stroke comes. Also, it will be important to build quality projects that support survivor, both in the daily life and returning to normality, and from a psychological point of view, and the families, as spoke before, with support after the trauma experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Luigi. There is a question from Bernd, please.
Yes, thank you very much. I would just like to tell you what is my vision and my dream for the future. My dream for the future is to make every person in our world a potential lifesaver. Starting with the kids in school, 2 hours resuscitation training every year as long as they go to school, make everyone in our world a lifesaver, because in cardiac arrest, you cannot wait until the professionals are arriving on scene. In almost all cases, they are coming too late. And if someone is acting early, we have heard that. The fascinating thing with cardiac arrest is that if someone is reacting early, you can survive in excellent conditions in a situation where you can live as before. That differs cardiac arrest as a deadly entity from all other deadly entities we have in the world. So make everyone in the world a lifesaver. And I have seen a chat note from Dave, and I'm not sure whether you would like to comment on this, but I have seen that you and your wife, you are going out and training others in how to do CPR. I have seen this in the chat, and it should probably also be mentioned to all of us, if I can invite you to say some few words on this.
Yeah, so what hit me was when I discovered in the UK that it's a 8% survival rate. So that was the trigger for everything I've done in the subsequent 3 years, from giving talks at my place of work. We attend big shows with the air ambulance, and we deliver on-the-spot CPR sessions. We do 1-hour sessions around the chain of survival and CPR, but we do this for anyone from the age of 7 upwards. And my wife is a primary school teacher, so she's excellent at being able to communicate to that audience. Yeah, so I don't know how many people that we've trained on CPR and AED use. It's huge numbers. I think the critical thing for me, once you've done that, is getting access to AEDs. So there is obviously down the cell AED device, but I think if every car had an AED, and if they didn't expire after 2 years, you know, having quick access to an AED, that's the next thing beyond CPR.
Great. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Before we close the questions session and key messages, I'd like to ask a question myself to the 3 survivors, or one of the 3 survivors. and that is the following. You all have spoken about finding a new purpose, a new meaning in your life. But when looking back, is there a message that you could give to us, most of us not having had cardiac arrest, about finding meaning in your life? You know what I mean? Something very terrible had to happen to you for you to change quite drastically the direction and the purpose in your life. What can you recommend us, having had this experience?
It's like a second chance to do it better, to make it more meaningful, but also to be more grateful about life. So it's that's human nature, that apparently something, harsh has to happen before you realize, on the one hand, what are the right priorities, and secondly, what could make your life even more meaningful. So I feel it as a second chance to do it better than the first time.
Yeah, I always tell people when I meet them now, if life is too short, find something you're interested in. If you're in a job and you're stuck in a job and you don't enjoy it, don't keep on doing it for another 20 years. Take a risk, go and explore something you enjoy. It might not work out, but then you'll find another one. Eventually you'll find something that works. So it's difficult if you need the money, but life is too short. You don't know what's around the corner. Try and find something that drives you. Hopefully hopefully the jobs you do in cardiac medicine drive you.
Thank you, Pierluigi. Anything from your side about this?
Yeah, I felt a responsibility towards those who saved me. I was a smoker. I'm not smoking well. I started working less. I started to be with my sons more time. I started a better life, where wellness is the focus of my life. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pierluigi. That's very touching. Thank you very much, all of you. We will now proceed with the survivor communities, which is the last small part of the webinar. And Johannes, over to you.
Thank you. And now we will take a look at our slides and look at the ongoing ERC survivor survey of survivor communities, and share some preliminary results. So if I could get the slides, and then I would like to just tell you and give you an overview of what we can already see from these preliminary results is that there are several survivor communities across Europe, we can see here that we are covering already with the survey quite a bit, but there are also gaps. And I think one of the major points we'll have through this at the end of this is that we would like to encourage you to participate in this survey if you're part of a survivor community, because we heard how powerful they are, and we would like to hear from them. This is also a survey that is globally available, so you can see here that there is the survivor community across the world, and of course this is also a group or groups we would like to hear from. And maybe Koen, if you would like to add something about the vision for the survivor communities with the ERC dashboard.
Yes, thank you, Johannes. Indeed, what we are seeing here is the new ERC cardiac arrest dashboard on our website, erc.edu, and it shows survival rates and other information in the different countries of Europe, and we were just thinking as an idea that we could probably add an additional layer to this, showing if you click on the countries, showing the survivor communities that are available for survivors. So not just how many cardiac arrests are there per year, what is the survival rate, what is the emergency number, but also where to turn to when you need the survivor communities. So that is like a missing link. And it was also shown in the chain of survival in some of the slides that this is actually a very big link, the biggest one, the survivor link, the biggest one, at least from the survivor perspective and the family perspective. So this is something that we are thinking we could probably add in the future as a layer to this ERC cardiac arrest dashboard, just as an idea. Johannes.
Thank you, Koen. And I agree. I believe there could be tremendous value for individuals in there and finding that connection and finding that link. However, I think first we need to hear from all these communities, and we need to get them together and understand what they're working on, how they're working on, who they are. And there is, again, this ongoing survey, the ERC survey of survivor communities. You can still participate in the survey. It is open until the end of October. And you can just go through the website that is displayed here. The link is available there. And also you can simply scan the QR code, which will take you right to the survey. And of course, we hope that you participate. Feel also free to share it if you know other groups, or if you know individuals from these groups who might be able to contribute, so that we can get the fullest picture possible to learn about survivor communities. Thank you. And I think with this, we will probably move to the conclusion of this webinar. And I would just, first of all, just thank everyone for participating and hand over to Koen for some final words.
Thank you, Johannes. We have a little bit of time to ask our speakers and survivors one sentence, some last words, some impressions, some take-home message from each one of you. I'll need to make sure that I'm not forgetting anyone. Maybe I'll start with the survivors. Pierluigi, do you have any single message, take-home message for us and for the audience today?
Thank you very much. I really it's emotional moment for me. Every 16 October is very, very emotional to tell my story, and that is a very nice story. But I don't wanna forgive everyone that don't have my luck, the one lucky as me, because the chain of rescue works, but sometimes the work on the chain of rescue is very, very important to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dave, please.
Yep. So for me, I think it is to reiterate that for survivors and their families, the journey starts when you leave hospital, not when you get into hospital. And I think the other thing, picking up on what Pierluigi said, is often when you see survivors, you'll see people who have come through this very well. So we're all in good shape. We've all done remarkably well. There are lots of people who haven't done as well as us and can't articulate how they feel. So I think you need to always bear that in mind. You're seeing the good shape of survivorship.
Thank you, Dave. Bernard needed to go early. We knew that, so I cannot ask him, but I'd like to thank him again for his participation and his story. Bernd, please. Take home message.
Yeah, thank you very much to everyone. I'm really very touched about this webinar and what we have discussed and what we have heard, and make everyone in the world a lifesaver and start in schools or in the kindergarten with kids. And I'm looking to Federico as the co-chair of Kids Save Lives. We are doing this together all over the world. And for me, that's the way to go to get many, many, many more survivors. It's much more important than any drug or any cardiac intervention. Bridge the time until the EMS, Emergency Medical Service, are arriving like the brothers and the family of Pierluigi did. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernd. Sebastian, please.
Thank you. I think the most important point we really impressively heard today was survivorship is no end, and it doesn't end at survivorship. It begins after surviving, and there's so many stories out there that we should listen to and we should hear more often out in the public and as providers. And I think that's the way to go forward. Thank you for hosting this today.
Thank you, Sebastian. Federico?
I want to say a big thanks to all this story that touched me a lot. And the next mission for us definitely will be take care of survivors. But I learned also this evening to take care of families, and definitely we need to take care of all the family around a patient in cardiac arrest with all the potential support of our scientific society. So thank you so much for this.
Thanks, Federico. And last but not least, my co-host, please, Johannes.
Thank you. Again, thank you to all of you. This has been an impressive and certainly memorable experience. And I would just point to the peer support and the communities that are there that are providing support, and that has been impactful for you and described as impactful for you. And this has been a major learning point, and I hope that in the future we can strengthen this even further. Thank you.
Thank you, Johannes. I'd like to thank all of you, the audience, for attending this webinar. I can promise you as the chair of the European Resuscitation Council that we take this very much at heart and that we will give this a lot of attention in the near and also the far future. To start with, at our conference in Athens in a few weeks' time, it will be a major topic, and that is very well deserved. Thank you very much for attending. I hope to see you all back next time at one of our webinars or conferences. Thank you very, very, very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.